Okay, Rabbi, we're going to do further on Chazarah, rapid Chazarah of Yerushalmi Peah. We're going to start from the fourth parak, which is roughly Daf Lamed. So, Peah, as we know, is given from that which is connected to the ground. Now, with certain types of vines and tall date trees, then the owner has to bring the fruit down and give it out to the poor. Now, Rav Shimon said also with giving out various types of nuts as well. Now, even if you've got a lot of poor people saying, oh, divide it up, but one of them said, oh, just let everyone get what they want. So normally, the din is we listen to the one who's the normal halacha. So whatever's normal. So normally, each one just takes what they want. So with Peah in the ground, they just take what they want. However, when it comes to these tall trees, the din is different, that even if everyone says, oh, just let us go and get it on our own, but one says, no, we'll divide it, then we listen to that person, because that is the halacha. Now, we bring the pasuk says about when you're finishing off cutting everything, we know Peah has to be mechuba, connected to the ground. Well, what about these tall trees? So we say, well, it's got to be just like when you're reaping stuff on the ground, everyone's got the equal chance, the tall, the short, as opposed to these trees where it's different if you're tall or you're short. So some actually want to learn it from the following. Right, the pasuk is Peah Chazarah Daf, so that's all very well. Leave it before the poor. As it is connected to the ground, and also various types of things as they are connected to the ground. We're now on Lamed Daled on the base. Now, you might think, what about these tall trees? Are the same din? So he says, no. No, those you have to give out. Now, why choose ones more than the others? So there is a riboy and miut. So we include things which are not a sakana, and we exclude things which are dangerous. The things which are dangerous, then the owner of the field has to go up and bring everything down. Now, this din of this trees, where the balabais brings everything down, it's very clear din. Mechuba is the lashon here of mechuvar. This it's like a Torah din, as we said, or the question is maybe it's only a rabbinical din. So the one says, well, if it's from the Torah, then it would depend where you would call it Peah, right? Would you call it Peah after you bring it down on the ground? But if you're going to tell me it's not such a clear din, maybe it's only a rabbinical din, then you'd call it Peah while it's up in the trees. So, and if you're going to call it Peah while it's up in the trees, and who pays for the expense of bringing it down? The poor people pay. But if you're going to tell me it's Peah down when it comes down, then it's balabais has to pay for the expense of bringing the fruit down. But then the Gemara says, no, it could be that if you call the Peah up in the trees, but again, they put the bother on the balabais to bring it down because of danger. Another opinion said all the trees are dangerous, and then everyone, the balabais, should start just like that, should go and climb up. Rabbi, the question is whether they have machlokes when they dash katzir, or the word that they don't dash, and the word katzir. Now, but then of course, no, everyone learns the katzir, but Rabbi holds that all trees are dangerous, and Rabbi said no, only certain types of trees. Rav Shimon also was the one who said he'd give out the nuts as well. We have a story where 5 brothers died when they were giving out nuts, when they were climbing, so we see there's a danger. Now, balabais, who gives it a name Peah, and then he cuts everything, we say, yeah, he should have left Peah connected for the poor and not to cut it. If he didn't call it Peah when it was connected to the ground, and he ended up cutting everything, then again, so although he's not yet given it a name Peah, but still there is a Peah connected. We don't say, he's not yet called Peah on this fruit. Nevertheless, it's all included in this lav as well. There's like a separate lav. So anyway, what about these trees where the balabais is bringing the fruit down? Let's say everyone made a condition. Don't have to divide it up. We still don't listen to them, but the balabais should divide it up. Why? Because we want him to have a friend that he'll recognize and say, well, I'll leave it and just throw it in front of that friend. Then they ask, what about if you finish cutting his field be'isur, and we say, well, okay, the mitzvah, if you finish cutting his field, it will go on to the Omerin then, on to what's been cut already. The dinner pair will go on that. So does he still give it out with his hands now? Not because we're worried about his friend. He'll start giving to a friend and he'll favor a friend. So he should still give it out and divide it up equally. Okay, coming to halacha base. So if, let's say, one of the people takes some of the Peah and he throws it, a poor person tries to throw it on the rest. So that's nothing, because that's not Masechet. If he falls on it, then, or put his garment on it, then other people can still take it away, right? And the same thing with leket, same thing with shikha. Now, Rabbi said, in the name of Rabbi, that we'll put a fine on the poor person who throws some of the Peah on the rest, because he's trying to take the rights of everyone else. will take away not only what's connected, what's not connected, but what's connected as well. Okay, now that's all very well if he did it intentionally. What about if it was shogeg, or what about if it was like bundles or whatever? Now, we don't answer the question. Rish Lakish said, you can acquire something within 4 amas. Now, we bring a source for this. Remember, David HaMelech is talking about how he collected everything for the Beis Mikdash. He says, me and my poverty, right? So what was it? How was he acquiring everything? And yet he was poor, but he's acquiring everything. So how did he do it? So Rav Oshia said, if it's within 4 amas, he was rich. And if it's beyond 4 amas, then it's not yet his. So he can't acquire it for the Beis Mikdash. So, and the Lashon, Ba'oni, in my poverty, so Wamsha is, but like he was fasting and giving the money of his meals to the Beis Mikdash. Or there's no riches in front of Hashem. We're now on Lamed Hei base. So they asked, but we've learned, if you find something and fall on it and you take hold of it, the one who takes hold of it acquires it. It's not Masechet. The second one who actually holds on to it is a Masechet. So if you acquire something within 4 amas, if someone who falls on something, why is he not acquiring it? So they want to say he didn't want his 4 amas to acquire for him. Yeah. We've also said if you put your garment on something, we can take it away. So again, it's where you never wanted your 4 amas to acquire something for you. Okay. We've also learned 2 poor people who were hitting each other, with the Omer, they were like hitting each other. Each one wanted to take it. Poor person snatched it, he can get it. And again, it's talking about a case where the person never said 4 amas, right? I want my 4 amas to acquire things for me. All right. Now, this din of something falls. We find with a man who's giving a divorce to his wife, and if it falls closer to her, she's divorced. If it's closer to him, then she's not divorced. Now, the dinim with gittin about this din, but not necessarily with gifts. These are chidushim and Rabbi and Rish Lakish. It's chidush and Rish Lakish. He said, look, you can acquire a found item within 4 amas. You can acquire it. If for a gift. If something you find where no one else is giving it to you, you could acquire it within 4 amas. Then a gift where someone's giving it, then definitely it should work. And the Chiddush from Rabbi Yochanan, if already a gift where someone's giving it to you, he says it doesn't work within 4 amas, then if something you find where no one's giving it to you, definitely should not work within 4 amas. Now we learned also about Kiddushin. Now, how is that applying with Kiddushin here? If you're a Mekadesh woman and it's closer to her, she's Mukudeshes. Now, that's not only with a get, but that's with Kiddushin. Now, how can you tell me it's not a din in Gittin and not in Kinyonim? How's it going to work with Kiddushin? So you might say Gittin and Kiddushin are the same. But we also learned about debts as well. When you're paying back a debt, has it gone to the debtor? Has it gone to the creditor? So he says, yeah, because with creditors, when you borrow money from someone, if he sells you, throw it into the sea, he doesn't have to get it for you to pay back the debt, right? As long as you throw it in the sea, then you have fulfilled your duty. But if that's the case, what about if you send the money closer to the debtor still owes the money. Why is that? Because if the creditor, he says, look, throw it till it comes into my domain. It's not yet come into my domain. All right. Move over to Halacha Gimel. So Peah, you can't start cutting it with certain types of sickles and various types of axes. We don't want people hitting each other. There were 3 times in the day when the people would collect the Peah. Right, that was in the morning, midday, and mincha. Rabbi Gamliel said they only said don't have less than that. Rabbi Kiva argued, he says no, you shouldn't have more than those times in the day. Shabbeis Nemer, they would have ropes and sort of line off various areas, rows, and then they would give Peah on those particular rows. So they didn't wait till the whole field was done. They would give Peah from now. So what are these 3 times? So we bring a pasuk for the word uvayos. So it's in the morning, and midday, and mincha times. The morning is because of the nursing mothers that in the children are asleep, they can come out. The midday is because of the children who sleep all morning. Tell me about it. And mincha is because of the people the older people who are going and who only reach the field in the afternoon. Rabbi Gamliel said, look, you shouldn't have less than 3 times. If you want to do more, you can do more. And Rabbi Kiva said, no, you don't have more. If you want to do less, you can do less. Now, Beis Nemer, they would have special ropes and line off the areas. Beis Nemer, in some ways, they're mentioned for good or for bad. Now, for bad, they gave Peah only 1 in 100. But for good, because they gave Peah regular intervals, they didn't wait till the whole field was cut. For 5 reasons, you shouldn't give Peah only at the end of the field, when you don't want to steal from the poor, and to keep the poor wasting their time, and because of the cheats, and Ma'aser Ayin, and because the Torah says you should finish off your field. Right, and then it goes through them. The idea is, again, so Bittul Aniyim, for example, you don't Aniyim waiting. When's he going to leave Peah? When's he going to leave Peah? Right? The cheats. I've already given Peah. Okay, so because of that, Ma'aser Ayin, we want people to see, look, the guy's not left Peah. They don't realize he might have left it in the middle. That's why you leave Peah at the end. And the Torah has a pasuk as well. It's the Chalei Peah Sadcha. Okay. Turning to Halacha Daled now. So a guy who cuts his field and then he becomes a Jew is patur from Leket, Shikha, and Peah. Yehuda obligates the Shikha because Shikha is the time of the bundles later on. And if he was a Jew at that stage, then therefore it's obligated. Now, Rabbi Yehuda seems to be right, who is Chaylek and is Machayev Shikha. And the Rabbanon, what's their reasoning? So we said we bring a patur of Shechachta Ema Basadeh and also Shechachta Kama. So if you've got Kama, the standing grain, then you have a din of Amorim, the bundles. If you don't have the Kama, you don't have the bundles. Right? So a guy who cut his field and then became Jewish, at the time of cutting he was patur, so he remains patur. Now a Jew and a guy who had a partnership, then the Jew's share is Chayav Peah and the guy's share is patur. But Rabbi said it's an argument. Okay. Halacha, if a person is Magdish a Kama and then he redeems it while it's still not yet cut, then it's Chayav Leket Shikha Peah. If there's bundles and he redeemed it, the Amorim, then he's Chayav Shikha Peah because the time of cutting yet is not Hegdish yet. If you're Magdish when it's still growing and then you redeem it when it's been bundles, then you're patur because at the time of the obligation, which was Chiv Leket Shikha Peah, was the time of the cutting, it was patur at that stage and it remains patur. Similarly, someone who's making his fruit Hegdish before the Einus Maestris, right? They haven't grown a third yet. Okay? And then you redeem it, you're chayav. But once they come to that reach of Maestris, and then you redeem it, then you're chayav Maestris because they were hegdish. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, let's say you made a hegdish after it reached the stage of Maestris, and then you redeem it, you're chayav Maestris because hegdish had a chiyuv trumas to Maestris. If you're magdish it before they're ripened, and then the treasurer is in charge when they ripen, then you redeem it, then you're patur because at the time of their obligation, which was the time of Maestris, they were patur at that time. Now, why we mention the din twice, right? One about Masechet Peah, Masechet Chala. We mentioned this din about the double here. About Sefer Mishnah, but they did on me Makdish fruit and the Einus Maestris. We mention it here, we mention it in Chala. So someone to say one is for the sort of the stacking stage, the smoothing of the pile stage, and one is for the stage of growing a third. Okay, so each one in his own right, each one could lead out with a patur in such a case. Rabbi Yossi said, others said no. One, yeah, again the same idea. One's from a ruach, stacking the thing, and one is for a third. Rabbi Bar explained his answer. He said one is with chala is for maruach, for stacking, and peah is for growing a third. Now we're on Lamed Chesed Aleph. So our Mishnah is Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva wants to say, look, you look at the first third because it's machlokes, right? A field which grows a third with in front of the rishus of the guy, and then you go and buy it. So Rabbi Kiva says you're patur because you follow the first third. The Chacham said any extra you're chayav. So what are we going to do now? So what are we going to do then? Is it like Rabbi Kiva, like the Chachamim? So it could be even Rabbi Kiva. There's a machlokes then. It's machlokes Chachamim who say any extra that grows you chayav maestris. Or if you cut it at that instant, as soon as you buy it, you cut it, then it's not going to grow anymore. Then you won't have to separate maestris. Okay, we're up to halacha vav, right? So no, it's all right. So someone who gathers peah and he says, look, this should go for so-and-so who's a poor man. Rabbi says, okay, you can acquire it for him. The Chacham said, no, give it to the poor man that you find. Leket Shikha Peah of a guy is chayav ma'aser unless it's made it hefka. So let's see. Shubin Levi says, we're talking about a rich man. And rich man, machlekes in the Mishnah, the Bala Sadeh, the owner of the field was a rich man and he can't acquire it for himself. He gathers it for a poor person. As machlekes, you can't get it for yourself. You can't acquire it for others. But if the Balabayas is poor, right, then he can acquire it for someone because since he could take it for himself, if he's a poor person, he can also take it for others. Now, Rabbi Zira said, a few people, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi they all said the same thing. Rabbi Lezer, a person can get something, can be Zaycha Metzia, a lost item, you find it for your friend. Rabbi Yochanan also said, if your children, your servants, and so on, what your wife finds belongs to you, but your older children, or the wife who divorced, and so on, they keep them for themselves. And that's only if the older children, if they're not independent, but if they are only if they're independent. If, however, they're eating at your table, then whatever they find goes to you. And Rosh Levi also said, a balabais who's rich, this machlokes, but if he's poor, he can take it. Since he can take it, he can acquire it, right? Now we spoke about one who hires a worker, right, to do work. So the din is, if he finds anything, goes to the balabais. So what about? But wait a minute, if he wants, he can cancel his work, so he can be chayzer. And you're going to tell me whatever he finds belongs to the balabais. Why? He can cancel and start working. So Rabbi Yasser actually asked, why do you have to come onto this din of Rosh Lakish? I mean, Rabbi Yaakov Baracha says, Rabbi Yochanan clearly said you can acquire a mitzvah for your friend, and Rosh Lakish said you can't acquire a mitzvah for your friend. He said it clearly, you have to try and be medayik it. So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Rifalma actually, he said there's a machlokes, Rabbi Yonah, Rabbi Yossi. One said, look, anyone who's fitting to take can acquire. As long as you can take something, you can acquire it for yourself. The other one said, no. If you're able to give it to others, if it was yours, then you can acquire it for others. Now, what's this argument here? So one says anyone who can take, then definitely if you can give it, then definitely you can take it, right? And the other one said anyone who's fitting to take, only if he's fitting to take, but if he's to give, that's not good enough. He has to be fitting to take as well. And we brought an argument about this because we spoke about shliach, who the husband makes a shliach to give the get, or the wife makes a shliach to receive the get. Yeah. And that middle person, what can he do? Can he take for this one and take for that one? Is he fitting to do it? If the wife only says receive it for me and the husband says give it for me, and we spoke about that.
Same person.
Yeah, is it the same person? If he's a man, he's not really fitting to receive the get. How can he for himself? So how can he be a shliach to receive the get from the woman? If he's a woman, he's not fitting to give the get. How can he be a shliach to actually give the get? So we said a man who's fitting to give the get, he can be a shliach also to receive the get. And that's like the one who says anyone who's fitting to give can acquire, even though he can't take for himself. And we said, well, he can receive a get for his daughter. We've also learnt about the person who says, give a get for my wife, for my servant. Yeah, the same person, the Eved. How's he the Eved being a shliach? Well, again, he could get his own freedom document, right? But then we said an Eved as well, taking a get. So did it mean the Eved was doing a get? He says, no, there were different cases there. One about an Eved and one about a woman. Now, there seems to be a question against the one who said whoever's fitting to take can acquire, because we've learned, remember this was the story where Gamliel's on the boat, and he says 1/10 that I'm going to measure is given to Akiva ben Yosef, that the poor people should get, and the place is included with it as well. And Rabbi Akiva, how is Rabbi Akiva taking Masa Ani for himself? He was a rich person, so either it was before he became rich, or even it was after he became rich, he was the treasurer for the charity, and that's how he was able to acquire it. We see from Rishub ben Levi that one who's meriting to Zeicher, the Rishub ben Levi said, Balabais Asher, he said, we're talking about a rich person, Balabais, but if he's poor, then because he's fitting to take pay for himself, he can acquire it for others. Okay. Aleket Vashikha, Rabbi Yirmiyah Ruchizkev said the name of Yochanan, and this is according to the one who says a guy has a power to pater from Maestris. If you're going to hold he hasn't got a kinyan to pater from Maestris, then even if things make things hefka, it'll still be chai but Maestris. Rabbi Yossi said the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that's according to the one who says a guy has not got a kach to pater from Maestris. And there is a chiyuv in our Torah, but if he makes it hefka, it is hefka. And the hefka works, even though he cannot remove the kedushas haaretz. But he's got a monetary kinyan, he's got a monetary acquisition in this fruit, and therefore the hefka is hefka. But if you're going to tell me that he's got a koyach to be pater from Maestris, then there's even a kula. Then if his whole chiyuv is only rabbanon, then leket shekapea, the chachamim were completely lenient. This is completely possible, even if he did not make it hefka. You hear that? Because they were completely lenient with the matanas. So Rabbi Lezer says, wait a minute, he's got a kinyan nechasim. I mean, if you're going to tell me he hasn't got a kinyan in the land, but he's got a kinyan, a mominous kinyan, and surely he's got a kinyan in that. So he says, no, that was said about something else. That was said about Chizkiah and Yirmiyah, he said like this, if you're going to hold he's got a kinyan in there, he's trying to pater from Maestris. But according to the one who says he has not got a kinyan, then on that, Rabbi Lezer asks, has he not got any nechasim? He's got kinyan mominus, he's got monetary aspect, and that's what the discussion was. But on the words of Rabbi Yossi, there wasn't a question, because our Mishnah is like the one who says the guy has not got a kinyan to pater from Maisrus. But Hefka works to pater from Maisrus because he's got a kinyan nechasim. Now, Chanina said the name of Rabbi Pinchas, we can still ask on Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, you want to hold it, a guy hasn't got a kinyan, there's to pater him on Maisrus. But according to the one who says he has got a kinyan, then on that, Rabbi Lezer asked, has he not got monetary? He's got a kinyan nechasim, has he not got that? Okay. I'll stop here for that.